Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. Very happy to be back here with you on a Wednesday afternoon. Joe Heschmeyer will be with us both hours, and it's Ask Me Anything. So you can ask Joe whatever you like. 888-318-7884. I want to make sure I make clear anyone can call. If you've got a question about the Catholic faith, even if you are the farthest thing from a Catholic, and I don't actually know what the farthest thing from a Catholic is, but if you think I'm the farthest thing from a Catholic, but I've got a question, I'm interested in this, I want to challenge them on some, whatever, you're welcome to call 888-318-7884. And if you're Catholic, you can call. That's the full range, I think. I think I've covered the full range there. 888-318-7884. The number. I want to thank Edgar and Thomas, who covered for me in recent days. It was a difficult few days for me, and I think Thomas mentioned it on Monday. My mother passed on Sunday, but if you can say that someone was serving others right up until death, that's what she did. She was really quite heroic, and my father was magnificent. My sister, who took care of my mother, made it possible for her to die at home. But my mother received communion 9:30 in the morning, and she died at 12:30. So 3 hours after receiving communion on Divine Mercy Sunday, and you can't feel more, as a son, you can't feel more blessed than that. I mean, that's thank you, Jesus, for all of that. And a thank you for everybody who has prayed for my mother, Joanne. She's quite an extraordinary person, a very funny person, very serious Catholic. So that meant I never got to miss any church services my entire childhood, including the obscure ones on Good Friday. We were at all of them. And I'm grateful for it now, but at the time, I did not feel grateful for it. So, again, thank you for your prayers for my mom. Thanks for everybody who covered for me. Joe Heschmeyer, welcome. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. That was actually surprisingly encouraging to hear you say that, because, we just dragged our kids to Triduum, and they were,
yeah,
we'll say mixed bag. They're 5, 3, and 1, so we had low expectations, and they sometimes met those.
Right. Yeah. I just remember Stations of the Cross was the hardest thing as a child. I just kept thinking, is there any way they could do this quicker? And that is, I realize that's a completely irreligious approach to it, but I just thought he's dragging this out on purpose. I could tell Father is dragging this out on purpose.
We went to a fish fry during Lent, and unbeknownst to us, they booked the Stations of the Cross upstairs at the same time the fish fry was downstairs. So we were faced with this dilemma, and we'd already promised the kids food. So my 3-year-old son was he was very interested in Stations, and so he took 2 steps towards the church and was just like, I'm going to have fish. It was you could see the battle being waged in his tiny soul.
Yeah.
But I also knew he wakes up hungry.
Yeah.
There's no way he's going to be able to resist for all of Stations.
Yeah, I'm with him. I am with him on that. At least I was as a child. Again, the number 888-318-7884. Whatever your question about the Catholic faith, you are welcome to call. Joe is apologist here, but author of I don't know why I said but. It's not exceptional to also be the author of many books. All of our apologists are, but the author of wonderful books like Pope Peter and The Eucharist is Really Jesus, and the early church was the Catholic Church, and he's the proprietor of Shameless Popery, one of the best podcasts on the internet, according to 11, maybe 12 people. Shameless. I'm one of them. Shameless Popery. Check it out. Did I get to everything, Joe? Should I go to the phones or?
Yeah, I think that was everything. I'm happy to start taking calls.
You were happy for me to stop talking, is what you're saying. I feel like that's. I felt like there was a subtext.
I want to respect your grieving process by not picking on you, and that cuts out 80% of our conversation.
Actually, I think it was helpful if you pick on me. It makes me feel like, another brother. I've got 3, and now I've got 4. David in Canada, watching on YouTube. You are numero uno today. Welcome, David. Go ahead with your question for Joe.
Hello, Cy. Hello, Joe.
Hi, David.
So,
hello.
My question is, so there's this growing narrative online where some people are saying you're not a real Catholic unless you're born into it. And they're criticizing converts, and some of the quotes I've seen are things like, I'm not religious, but I'm 100% Catholic and more Catholic than a convert, or my dad was Catholic. We've never been in a church, but I'm still more Catholic than a convert. And this one here that says, converts treat the church like a little exclusive cult judging normal Catholics who only go to Mass twice a year and never go to confession. My ancestors have been Catholic for hundreds of years. I don't need someone who converted 2 years ago telling me I'm a sinner because they read that in some catechism. So, Joe, I'm wondering, what is your perspective on this? Have you seen this emerging anywhere?
I have heard only secondhand and like people telling me. I think I've seen stupid things online, but I've been spared whatever corner of the internet you've discovered this insanity. I mean, look, it highlights something that I hope many of our non-Catholic listeners can appreciate. And in fact, many Catholic listeners who hear these sometimes scary stats of like only such and such % of Catholics believe in the real presence. When you include in that number both the people who are Catholic because they actually believe it, and then also the people who it's like their dad was Catholic and so they still claim to be Catholic, but they've never been to church. I mean, it's like saying you're Irish on St. Patrick's Day. There's a reason we don't count those people when you're actually doing the Irish population, because it's such an attenuated connection. So look, I would say this. The church is more than a set of intellectual propositions. And so I think the people who say like, hey, we have a connection to Catholicism because we were baptized into this and we, grew up in this society, in this family, I accept that kind of premise. But it's not just a social institution. It's not just if you're of this ethnic group or this, family or whatever else, therefore you're a Catholic. That's such a lukewarm and meaningless kind of conception of Catholicism at heart that it's why even continue to use the claim. Like the centuries of Catholic ancestors you cite to, who bled and died potentially to be Catholic, would not look at your lukewarm apostasy and say, yeah, this is what I risked my life for. This is why I spread the gospel. This is why I held to the faith when it was hard. No, of course not. Like the church is a family, but it's a family of faith. And so those who are born into that family, like, I don't know, the apostles, the first generation of Christians, those people are every bit as much of the family as the old Pharisees saying, oh, you can't come in if you're a Gentile. Oh, you can't come in if you're a convert. Like this is that stodgy old timers club, ironically, is doing the very thing that they're accusing converts of doing. They're trying to gatekeep this thing. If there's a gate, it's Christ himself who calls himself the gate. And so those who accept Christ rightly can claim to be Catholic, especially if they're in union with his church as they're meant to be. Whereas those who may have been sacramentally incorporated but have rejected the gate, they've shown themselves out in a real way. So we can still say they're Catholic in one sense, but in the deeper sense, and the sense that's most meaningful to God and should be the most meaningful to us, many of these people won't be counted as true Catholics on the last day.
Thank you for that. I know that question seems kind of crazy, but when there's hundreds of these comments with tens of thousands of likes on them, it's kind of like, what's going on here, right? But also big fan of Shameless Popery. So
thank you very much.
Get that.
I think without psychoanalyzing tens of thousands of people, I think one of the things going on is that lukewarm Catholics are confronted by people who are actually believing the faith that the lukewarm people's grandparents believed. And seeing people today still believe those things to be true is like seeing, I don't know, just say you've got a family recipe and you've like diluted it and diluted it and diluted it. And then someone comes along and makes it the way grandma used to make it. And you taste it and you're like, oh yeah, I've been watering mine down for ages. They've been watering down their faith for ages. And seeing someone living out the real thing, I think is probably convicting and confronting. And one way of responding to that is to try to bully them on the internet for being faithful followers of Jesus Christ.
All right. Well, thank you for the answer. and have a good live stream.
Thank you, David. Are you a convert, or were you raised Catholic?
No, I'm a convert.
Oh, I am so sick of you people. Okay.
If I could mute the host.
Thanks, David. Thanks
Don't
for
worry,
the
he
call.
meant Canadians when he said that, not converts.
You said the call was for Catholics or people that were the furthest thing from Catholics. So would that be a convert? I don't know.
That is certainly not. It is
I
certainly
was going
not.
to say a penguin, but that's because I'm so deeply ensconced in dad jokes. I was just thinking geographically.
The farthest thing from a Catholic is a penguin?
Yeah, like a free penguin in South Pole.
Are your kids amused by this kind of stuff, or
No,
no? Okay.
No one is.
All right.
But I
No.
got to keep working on it.
David, thanks. We'll be right back with more Ask Me Anything with Joe Heschmeyer on Catholic Answers Live.
Hang on. Catholic Answers Live will return in a moment.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
The most original and exclusive Catholic content is on EWTN Radio.
I pray that EWTN News in Depth will help the everyday life of everyday Catholics by bringing them the news that matters to them and helping them to have the information at their fingertips for whatever it is that they need to be able to engage with the world confidently with their faith.
EWTN News in Depth with Montse Alvarado. Friday night, 8 Eastern on EWTN Television and Radio.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Joe Heschmeyer, our guests. Ask Me Anything this hour, 888-318-7884. Everybody is welcome, and I say that, but I don't know if I mean it because every single line is full. So you can dial, but all the lines are full. But in our hearts, you're welcome, and we'll try to get to you, but you might have to keep trying a little bit. Trevor is in Buffalo, Wyoming, watching on YouTube. I understand why Buffalo, Wyoming would be named Buffalo. I don't know why Buffalo, New York is named Buffalo. But hi, Trevor.
Hi, how are you doing?
Really good. Welcome.
Hey. So I recently got married, and I also recently found out that my wife is pregnant.
Congratulations, times
like
two.
Thank you. Oh, do you say yours is too?
No, I said congratulations times two
No,
for the wedding and
okay,
for the
okay,
pregnancy.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah. But I'm feeling like a little uneasy about being like a father and stuff, and was wondering if you had any advice, like, I guess, like how to approach like the calling of being a father and how to be more excited about this, because like I've always wanted to be a father, but now that it's here, I'm just kind of anxious about it.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to give you kind of scattershot advice because that's what I've got. So,
Okay.
first, I actually talk about this. I offer you this book, but it was through OSV, not Catholic Answers, so I don't think we have it in stock. But I have a book called A Man Named Joseph, where I look at the fatherhood of Saint Joseph as kind of a model for fathers. Because one of the things that Pope Francis talks about is that he calls him a shadow of the Father, which I think is a really beautiful way of expressing this biblical concept. So in Ephesians chapter 3, St. Paul says, for this reason I bow my knees before the Father, Pater, from whom every family, patria, in heaven and on earth is named. So every family, every fatherhood in Greek, is a little image of the fatherhood of God. So if you want to be a father well, your task is just be godlike, to be godly in how you treat your wife and your children, and to show them the tender mercy and love of the Father. And in a way, this is incredibly liberating, because there's all sorts of questions of what, because look, I'll tell you, as a parent, it is both harder and more joyful than you're anticipating. Maybe not you, because it sounds like you're already pretty anxious. It was certainly harder than I expected and better than I expected. And so people who say, like, I wouldn't trade it for the world, and you look at them and you're like, but you look so frazzled. Those two things coexist in a weird way. I think the same thing is true of marathon runners, but I don't understand it. But what I'd say is, you can have these moments where you think, okay, I'm in a situation where I have to react to something that my child has done. And there's a couple different reactions I could take. And maybe this reaction will help them, or maybe this will be something they're going to talk about a therapist to 20 years from now, or maybe it's totally irrelevant and it just doesn't work. And I won't know, maybe for years, maybe ever, which actions were the right ones and the wrong ones in the situation. And so that can be really overwhelming. So to know that throughout it all, you should live in such a way that you model mercy and forgiveness and everything else, I think is kind of a foundational principle. Does that part make sense? I've actually got more to add to it, but I want to make sure that I'm at least making some sense here.
That part makes sense.
Okay, great. So the Catechism talks about parents as the first teachers of their kids. And I've heard this many times, often in the context of like homeschooling or, this sort of thing. But in reality, the primary sense of it is that you are the first one to teach your kids about Jesus and to teach your kids about what it is to live a Christian life. And so the Catechism gives some very practical steps to kind of do that well. So if you've got the Catechism, it's paragraph 2221 all the way through 2231. And it says in 2223 that you bear witness to your responsibility as the first teacher of your kids by creating a home where tenderness, forgiveness, respect, fidelity, and disinterested service are the rule. Disinterested doesn't mean apathetic. Disinterested means like you're doing it for their good rather than your good. So you are serving your wife and your kids as the norm, not as the exception. You are faithful, you are forgiving, you are respectful, and you are tender. Notice those things are very different than a lot of the secular criteria for what effective parenting looks like. You'll find 50 different parenting philosophies, and 49 or 50 of them don't work. And I don't know which one does, if one does. But if you follow the church's guide, if in the face of all your mistakes, you are living out a fatherhood of tenderness, forgiveness, respect, fidelity, and disinterested service, your kids will be okay. There's more to it. There's also a lot of discussion about self-mastery, that you can't be like a slave to sin and be a good father. And then additionally, the need to show and receive forgiveness. So forgive your kids, tell them you forgive them, but also when you fall short, which you will, despite your best efforts, go to them and ask them for forgiveness and let them learn mercy on both ends. Does that help? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, that helps a lot.
Good. And then the last thing, I know I've gone long on this, but it's such a big question, and I think probably a lot of people have dealt with this. I occasionally just fall back on like, okay, we've been doing this parenting thing since caveman times, and all the way back to Adam and Eve, and it's not always great. I mean, Adam and Eve had some family dysfunction, I think, if it's fair to say, with Cain and Abel, but kids have turned out more or less okay for thousands of years, with or without parenting books, with or without all the best strategies. And so don't exaggerate how important you are to the process, and then just do your bit to the best of your ability and apologize when you fall short.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I'll tell you what, maybe you'd like to have it in the home. We'll send you the big book of Catholic Answers if you'd like it. Just hang on and tell Edgar. He'll pick up the phone in a sec here, and just give him your address, and we will send it off to you. I'm going to go back to the phones, Joe, but I looked up. I wanted to see are people really picking on Catholic converts on the internet? And there are some people, and there's kind of a thread going. And somebody said it started after the death of Pope Francis, or it became a thing like on TikTok and stuff after the death of Pope Francis. This one young woman is saying she's kind of proud of converting to Catholicism. She wrestled with it and then someone wrote like, "You converted for aesthetics." That's what somebody wrote to her. And I just want to take a second to because that call is not a call I expected from the gentleman from Canada. Like, I didn't know, but we do want converts to Catholic faith. Almost everybody in the parish will be thrilled to see you. If there are some disgruntled people, first of all, they're probably not in the parish.
Yes, exactly.
But please ignore them. I don't know what else to say, Joe, but that's really a horrible thing if people are giving converts a hard time for coming into the Catholic Church.
In a way, I think we might have found the people who are the furthest from Catholicism.
Oh.
The hard-hearted ex-Catholic Pharisees.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I actually saw a thread recently where it was posted on an ex-Catholic forum, and it was people complaining about the Catholic Church closing beautiful inner-city churches that served the poor. And I was like, hey, guys, bet if you went to church and tithed, they wouldn't be closing those churches.
Yeah.
But
did you say that, or did you just think it?
I didn't. I didn't want to even delve in, but I'm saying it now. So if you're listening,
like, if you really want those churches open, there's an answer for that.
Right. If you're worried about the direction converts are taking the church, go back to your faith and live it out. I bet if you took that seriously and weren't just an activist, you'd probably end up being more like the converts, and you wouldn't feel the need to attack them anymore.
Yeah, I'm really, really sorry to hear that. But you should be. I mean, somebody said that somebody told her online the cradle Catholics are secretly talking about you behind your back. They don't really like you. That's a horrible thing. Like that's just sowing suspicion.
Yes.
That's really horrible. So
I am not acquainted with this in real life at all.
No,
it just
I wasn't
seems
either.
like classic kind of internet mean girls.
Yeah, right. All right, let's go to Cincinnati. Chuck is in Cincinnati, Ohio, watching on YouTube. We're glad you're here. Chuck, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, hello, Mr. Heschmeyer. So there's some presumptions. Yeah, hello. There's some presumptions into this before I ask my question, but because God had commanded Abraham and nobody had risen from the dead yet, and this was a matter of him almost sacrificing his son of promise, I'm presuming that you do believe that Abraham was a man of faith, a man of strong faith. So I'd like to ask, so there's two sides to this. I'd like to ask, where did you first learn, perhaps from, maybe your mother or father, somebody had said that this is what the Bible says, or maybe a priest had told you, or maybe you read it yourself, finding out this is, yes, he is a man of faith. And the flip side, which would be an example of, but I'm not trying to condemn the person. But anyway, so within the confines of the United States, when then President Joe Biden, when he was declined by a priest concerning the Mass, because then President Joe Biden had supported the LGBTQ, that most Roman Catholics here in the United States say, yeah, he's Roman Catholic, he's a man of faith, or did most Roman Catholics in this country say, that's what he says, President Joe Biden, he says he's a Roman, that's what he says, but, I just don't know. So that's my flip side, two sides of the coin question.
Okay, I don't right now see the connection between those two questions. But I'll say I don't remember exactly the first time I heard about Abraham's faith. It is described pretty explicitly. For instance, in Genesis 15, verse 6, Abraham believed God and it was credited to him as righteousness. This is a pretty pivotal line that St. Paul draws upon in his exegesis of Abraham's faith in Romans. So I'm sure it was a combination, probably my mom and dad teaching me Bible stories as a kid, and probably before I could even read, and then hearing about them at Mass and everything else. In terms of Joe Biden, there were a lot of controversies that led to him being told not to present himself for communion, not least of which is that he supported the legalized killing of unborn children. And so faith isn't just a mere internal set of ideas about God. True faith is something that's actually lived out. And so if you're living a life contrary to the faith you claim to have, that is enough reason, and this is explicit church teaching, not to present yourself for communion. So, you could say, I believe in monogamy. If you're living in an adulterous relationship, you shouldn't present yourself for communion. It's just a matter of having the integrity of having your life match your stated beliefs.
That brings us right to the break. Joe Heschmeyer is our guest. It's Ask Me Anything this hour, 888-318-7884. We hope that one of the things that we communicate here at Catholic Answers Live is that our Catholic faith allows us to be fully serious about all the problems we encounter in the church and in the world, but it also lets us have light hearts and maybe even mix in a bit of fun, and that is exactly what our good friend Joe Heschmeyer does in his popular podcast, Shameless Popery. You should check it out at shamelessjoe.com. Joe's got a deep grasp of the faith, morals, the teachings of the church, all that, but he's also got a witty conversational style. He entertains and he informs, but you will leave equipped to better answer the most common challenges, misconceptions, and questions about the Catholic faith. He's got insightful guests, he does on-air debates, and he takes a close look into all the things that you want to know about as a Catholic living today. You'll walk away knowledgeable and filled with joy. Look for Joe on his YouTube channel. Check him out at shamelessjoe.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, become a patron.
Our Lord needs articulate defenders of the truth to spread the joy of the Catholic faith. Catholic Answers monthly giving club, Society 315, helps you fulfill the call in 1 Peter 3:15 to always be prepared to make a defense for the hope that is in you. For as little as $10 a month, you'll help Catholics grow in faith, bring lapsed Catholics home, and lead non-Catholics to the truth. Go to casociety315.com and join today.
Each Catholic is obliged to spread and defend the faith by word and deed. Well, we're here to help. Join special guests Chris Stefanik, Dr. David Anders, Father Jeff Kirby, and all your favorite Catholic Answers apologists this September 25th through 28th in beautiful San Diego for the Catholic Answers Conference. Our theme, Go Make Disciples. Enjoy 4 days of faith, fun, and fellowship. Use promo code EARLY to save $50 when you register today at CatholicAnswersConference.com.
On Thursdays, Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, our topic will be, whom or what are you praying for? And now back to Catholic Answers Live with Cy Kellett.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host, and Joe Heschmeyer is our guest both hours. Joe's written some of the most awesome Catholic books available, and I know that because it's in this script that Carrie gave me. The Eucharist is Really Jesus, or Pope Peter. How about the early church was the Catholic Church? They are all on sale during our store-wide Easter sale. As a matter of fact, everything in our online shop is on sale with dynamite prices store-wide. Excellent use of the word dynamite, Carrie. That's a great deal with important days like Mother's Day, Father's Day, confirmations, and graduations coming up. What are you waiting for? Visit shop.catholic.com today and check out our discounted prices store-wide. To me, that ad read like, Joe's books are so great that they're on sale with everything else we've got. Like, congratulations, Joe. We value your books so much. We put them on sale with everything else.
Yeah, it's, Terry's got a unique angle on such things.
Okay.
How do I put that nicely?
Yeah, it was a very enthusiastic ad, though. So go to shop.catholic.com and get your Easter savings right now. One of the best things that happens to us here at Catholic Answers is people come to visit us from time to time, and we have some good friends now. They have become our good friends in the last hour or so here, who are visiting us from Omaha, Nebraska. And in studio with us now is Peg from Omaha. Welcome, Peg.
Thank you.
What are y'all doing in San Diego?
Oh boy, we've done a lot. We went on a bay cruise with my brother. We went up to the cemetery on Cabrillo, up on Point Loma.
The military cemetery. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
We've walked along the beach a lot.
Does any of it compare to the glory of coming to Catholic Answers?
Absolutely not.
Peg, you're all right. You are all right. We are big fans of Spirit Catholic Radio, which I think started in Omaha. I'm not sure if but it's in lots of cities up there now. But what a great job they do. Well, did you come with a question for Joe?
Yeah, I have some dear Muslim friends, and they believe in one God, and they keep asking me where in the Bible does it say that Jesus is God?
Yeah, that's a great question. So part of this is a misunderstanding about what it looks like for Jesus to claim to be God. So Jesus doesn't just go out there and begin a sermon by saying, "Hello, everyone, I'm God. I'm the second person of the Trinity." That's not how he does things. And Muslims used to the way the Quran is written might be surprised that, how do I want to put this? Jesus presents himself slowly, but in a way that seems much more like real life than like somebody just writing a story. And I mean, reword that however you want. But Jesus presents himself as God. Now, he's also described as God. So you actually see this all over the place, but especially in the Gospel of John. So, for instance, in John 20, verse 28, when Jesus appears to Thomas and says to touch his wounds, Thomas responds, "My Lord and my God." And Jesus doesn't say, like, "How dare you?" He says, "Have you believed because you've seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe." So he pronounces a blessing on those who, like Thomas, declare Jesus to be Lord and God. But then you also have these other places where you have these Old Testament prophecies, so for instance, where it says, "At the name of Jesus, every knee shall bend." This is quoting the Old Testament where it talks about at the name of Yahweh, every knee shall bend. Now, there's no question that Yahweh in the Old Testament is God. This is how God reveals himself. And so this is showing us that Jesus is the true God of Israel. And there are plenty of other places, where, for instance, in Malachi, God promises to enter his temple. And there's all these, what's sometimes called the two powers, where you see Yahweh coming from Yahweh to do something. And it led to a great deal of confusion among people before the time of Christ to say, well, how can we talk about God sending God? That doesn't make sense. Or God saying, "Let us make man in our image." Well, that doesn't make sense. But with the Trinity, it's like, suddenly all of these ambiguous Old Testament passages come into clear light as well, where now we can understand what's going on there. So Jesus presents himself as God, affirms when he is called God, is referred to by people like St. Paul as God, and then fulfills Old Testament scriptures about God and makes sense of other Old Testament passages that'd be very hard to understand otherwise. So for all those reasons, we would say the New Testament clearly shows us that Jesus presents himself as God, and then he truly dies and rises from the dead, as only God could do.
What do you think? Will that help?
Okay, that'll help.
All right. I don't know if you know all the titles to Joe's books, but I'll name some titles. You tell me which one you want, and then we'll.
Oh, okay.
Pope Peter. The early church was the Catholic Church. Now, why am I drawing up? Oh, the Eucharist is really Jesus. Any of those strike you?
Which one has the biggest font? No, I'm kidding.
Joe's writes picture books as well. We could just give you a picture book. The
Eucharist is a font of all graces, so you couldn't get a bigger font than
that.
Oh, you're getting it. Okay. Yeah. All right, Peg. Thanks for coming in.
All right, you bet.
It's very nice to have a visitor. And to all of you, thanks for coming to visit us. It's very nice.
Okay.
All right, on to look at our next caller is in Omaha, Nebraska. That's hilarious. Listening on Spirit Catholic Radio. Tom in Omaha, Nebraska. I don't know if you know Peg, Tom. Does everybody in Omaha know each other? Welcome, Tom. Go ahead with your question.
Hey, Omaha is 1 million people, and we don't know each other.
You don't? All right.
I can tell you. Okay, my question is this. In the Bible, nowhere is an angel presented as a female. And my question, and then in apparitions to saints and so on, there's St. Clare and St. Catherine Labouré and others. And the angel is always a male. And I wondered, have you ever heard of a situation that's a reliable thing, that where an angel came as a female?
I have not. Certainly not any of the biblical presentations of angels. No, it's probably worth saying angels are spiritual beings. They don't have bodies. And so even what we mean in talking about whether they're male or female is reading into that a whole lot of bodiliness that they don't possess. Now, nevertheless, when they appear, they do appear in male form, and the names that angels have become male names as they're taken up by humans. But, Matthew 22:30, where Jesus describes celibacy in heaven by saying that in the resurrection, or in the resurrected world, that in the resurrection, humans neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven. That seems to suggest pretty plainly that they're not sexual beings, which of course they're not as spiritual beings. So yeah, I don't think there's any foundation for that. Does that make sense to you, Tom?
Yes. Thank you.
All right, Tom. Thank you. Let's see if our next caller is from...
Since, so we just had 2 Omaha ones in a row, I wanted to tie that in with the font joke by saying, since there are no female angels, you could say they're kind of sans serifs.
I honestly, I'm not even joking. It's been a tough week for me, but I have no idea what that means.
Sans serif is what you call the font without the little edges on the little edge on a font. Are serifs?
I think at
like
the break,
Times New Roman?
I'm going to ask you to explain this to me at the break.
Okay.
Because I feel really stupid right now.
No, I think I'm just batting 0 in terms
Is
of...
is it you or is it me? I don't know, because I feel like I should know what this is.
Callers decide.
All right, Jennifer is in Indiana listening on the EWTN app. Jennifer, welcome. Go ahead with your question for Joe.
Hi, I'm calling because my brother was confirmed in the church 2 years ago. This year, me and my husband were confirmed in the church. And so now my mom is asking questions and interested. And her question for me this week was, why can't she take the Eucharist if she truly believes that it's the body and blood of Christ?
Oh.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, first of all, it's welcome home to your brother, to your husband, to you. Second, it sounds like there may be more good news in the future with your mom if she's really faithfully asking such questions and leading seeing where they go. But third, to answer the question, the Eucharist, and we see this even going all the way back to St. Justin Martyr in First Apologies, when he's talking about who can receive communion, he mentions that it's only those who are baptized who are living a life in accordance with the teachings of the church. And this is what's called closed communion. And there's a couple reasons for this. One, if you look at all the ways baptism is prefigured, you have things like the Passover meal, which was only available to the circumcised, like full member of the covenant community. And so someone who isn't fully in membership doesn't partake of the fulfillment of the Passover, the Eucharist. Second, the Eucharist is a form of communion. And so in the same way that you can have various means of communion with your spouse before you get married, the fullness of that only happens once everything is rightly established. The same is true with the Eucharist. This is the fullest expression of communion that we have. And so it is reserved for when we're in a rightly regulated relationship with our Lord. And then finally, as St. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 10, the Eucharist creates our communion in the church. He says there is one body, meaning the church, because we partake of the one loaf, arton. And so the Eucharist creates not only union with Christ the head, but also union with the Catholic Church's body. And so someone who doesn't want to enter into communion with Christ or doesn't want to enter into communion with the church can't consciously, in good faith, receive the Eucharist, because you see, like, they're saying one thing with their body, that they want to enter communion, and saying something else with their heart, that they don't want to enter full communion. And that kind of contradiction is wrong. It's something that we are actually warned not to treat the Eucharist frivolously in 1 Corinthians 11, because Paul warns we could even eat and drink damnation upon ourselves. So I don't know, does thinking about it in those ways help? Thinking about it as the fulfillment of the Passover, as this act of, even bodily communion, and as the means of creating communion with the church as well? Does this help explain why the church is always, like, this is not some new teaching, and this isn't like some response to the Reformation. We find this all the way back in the 100s, Christians talking about this.
Yes, that's very helpful. Yes.
Oh, good.
Joe? You're not going to give her a book?
Oh, yeah. You should get the book, The Eucharist is Really Jesus. A lot of times Cy gives the book. I'm bad at mentioning that.
You were waiting.
So
You were waiting for me to give the book.
I just, I do the answering questions.
I mean, when
the
book, the question is about the Eucharist, it seemed
that is
clear.
a great point.
If
you should have just said, "Hey, is the Eucharist really Jesus? And do you have anything I could read on that?"
Yeah,
I would have gotten that clue.
We do occasionally get calls like that, where it's like, "Really? Yeah. That's your like calling up when Tim Staples is on and going, what does the Bible mean when it says, 'Behold your mother'?" Okay. Oh, really? Okay. All right, Jennifer, hang on. We want to send you The Eucharist is Really Jesus by our guest, Joe Heschmeyer. All we need is an address, and we'll get that if you'll give it to Edgar. That'll take us to the break. Right back with more Ask Me Anything on Catholic Answers Live.
Hang on. We'll be right back with more Catholic Answers Live.
The Catechism defines evangelization as the proclamation of Christ and His gospel by word and the testimony of life. But what does that look like in real life? It looks like St. Paul street evangelists out in the public square sharing the good news. We're a Catholic nonprofit that starts conversations by handing out free sacramentals. Then we employ our method of listen, befriend, proclaim, and invite. Catholic Answers is supported in part by St. Paul Street Evangelization. Visit streetevangelization.com to learn more.
Mother Angelica had a simple goal when she began EWTN: to reach the world with the gospel message. EWTN News, headquartered in Washington, D.C., operates multiple global news services, including Catholic News Agency and the National Catholic Register newspaper. We've never wavered from our mandate to proclaim the truth and majesty of the Catholic faith. Thank you for joining EWTN in this mission.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Our guest is Joe Heschmeyer, and lines are full. Off to the phones we go. It's Ask Me Anything, so you never know what people are going to ask. And you definitely don't know with our next caller, our friend Emma from Hayden, Idaho, who is watching on YouTube. Welcome back, Emma.
Hi. I got to tell you, I get your Catholic Answers magazine, and my husband, who's a Protestant, reads through them completely. Nice. And I caught them last night at our Bible study, and they said, "Well, you should see this article. It is a Catholic, but for a Catholic magazine, it's really good."
Well, that is quite an endorsement for a Catholic magazine.
Put that on the magazine cover.
Yeah. That should be the subhead of the whole thing, right? For a Catholic magazine.
He's a knucklehead.
It's really
he
good.
Just gotta love him. So at this Bible study that I go to, that's Protestant again because it's in my house. We've been together for about 10 years. Last night we were in Matthew. We're reading through Matthew, and in 17 we kind of got off track a little bit, but they were saying that Tozer, if you know who he is, said that John the Baptist is Elijah. And
yes
I went,
and no.
Whoa. Oh, okay.
Okay, so if you want the yes answer, Matthew 11:14 says, if you're willing to accept it, he is Elijah who is to come, speaking about John the Baptist. And so likewise in Matthew 17, the part you're talking about, where Jesus talked about how Elijah has come and the world didn't know him. It's a reference to John the Baptist. But he's not literally like a reincarnated Elijah. He's
okay. Thank
so
you.
That's the difference. So in John 1:21, when John the Baptist is directly asked if he's Elijah, he says no, he's not the reincarnation of him. He is Elijah in the sense that Jesus is talking about, that he is the one who's going to be the messenger of what?
Persona. Is he persona?
Yeah, he's like He's like a personification, but there is an actual human being, Elijah, and so the context of Matthew 17 is really critical because they've just seen literal Elijah at the Transfiguration, and so then they're like, well, what is all this stuff about? And Jesus is explaining that the prophecy is not talking about. In other words, the Transfiguration was not fulfilling the Elijah passages about the coming of Elijah, although Elijah did literally come. The Elijah passages are instead referring to the coming of John the Baptist because he's fulfilling that role.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
We did. He's pretty good for a Catholic apologist, right?
Thanks, guys.
All right. It's always good to talk with you, Emma. Thank you very much for the call. On we go to Troy, Michigan. Mark is in Troy, watching on YouTube. Welcome, Mark. Go ahead with your question for Joe.
I have a couple of questions. The first one is, what's a book you can recommend for my son? We're homeschooling him, and I'm kind of looking at all of your books. I'm trying to figure out what's good for a 15-year-old.
Oh, okay. The age was what I was missing there. What kind of a reader is he?
He's a pretty big reader. When he was 9 years old, he used to read H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh, nice.
At 9 years old? Wow.
Yes.
Is he like setting fires in your home or anything?
Yeah, that's very spooky stuff.
Yeah. Okay, wonderful. I would recommend. So look, it's hard to choose one of my own books because they're like children. You always like the most recent one. I'm just kidding. It's just hard to choose. But I would say The Eucharist is Really Jesus might be something where it takes something that he's already hopefully passionate about, our Lord in the Eucharist, and it opens up different angles he maybe hadn't thought about. But without knowing your son, I don't know if he'd be more interested in church history or more interested in Eucharistic theology or more interested in the papacy. But those would be kind of avenues. So if he seems passionate about one of those other topics, we could switch that up. But what was your other question?
Also, the other question is, so my wife and our marriage is struggling at times, and I need to figure out what I can do as a Catholic man to help with the marriage.
Yeah. I would say a lot of it is remembering to not just serve your wife, but to serve her in the ways that she needs and wants to be served, which are often very different ways. Because, I don't know if you're familiar with the whole concept of like love languages and any of those things, but we can sometimes have this thing where, speaking very broadly, as men, we often want to serve the women that we love by doing things for them. And sometimes we're invited to serve them in ways that are more inconvenient, like listening or being emotionally vulnerable or affirming them with words of praise. And so St. John Chrysostom had some fantastic advice for men. He said, tell her that you love her more than your own life, because this present life is nothing, and that your only hope is that the two of you pass through this life in such a way that in the world to come you will be united in perfect love. Say to her, our time here is brief and fleeting, but if we're pleasing to God, we can exchange this life for the kingdom to come. Then we will be perfectly one with Christ and each other, and our pleasure will know no bounds. That is, I think, the blueprint for a happy marriage, to have explicitly your great affirmation for your wife and esteem for her, coupled with your mission, which is to get one another to heaven. and then to focus on that as much as you can, with all of the ups and downs and struggles that it can be to kind of live that out. What do you say to that?
That's really good advice, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, good. Well, I'm happy to hear that, and hopefully it goes well. If you stay on the line, you can actually choose which of my books you think would be the best one to get for your son.
Hang on, Mark. We'll put you on with Edgar in just a second. Let's try to get as many as we can on this hour. Lines have continued full for the full hour, so let's go to Chris in Dallas, Texas, who's listening on the Guadalupe Radio Network. We're delighted to have you here. Chris, go ahead with your question.
Okay, yeah, I'm actually from Omaha.
Oh, no way. That's a big Omaha day around here.
I'm just kidding. No.
Oh.
I'm just kidding.
Do you know Peg?
Yeah, Dallas is right. That would have been funny. Yeah, so got a question. So we've got a 2-year-old foster son, and in a conversation with a friend who wanted to, they're like, let's baptize him, like kind of jokingly. But I was like, well, the parents have to agree to raise him in the faith, and if he's not going to be with us, we can't really do that. But then I was thinking later, one of our arguments for baptizing children is why deny the child the grace? So my question is, why deny this child the grace, I guess?
So, yeah, just to be very clear, the canon law in Canon 868 says that for an infant to be baptized licitly, which means lawfully, there must be a founded hope that the infant will be brought up in the Catholic religion. If such hope is altogether lacking, the baptism is to be delayed according to the precepts of particular law after the parents have been advised against the reason. That's part two. Part one was that the parents, or at least one of them, or the parent who legitimately takes their place, must consent. So if you were adoptive parents, it would be a different question, because if you have a long-term relationship with the child, then there's a reason to believe that you could have the child baptized and you can raise them in the faith. Even, it doesn't matter if they're biologically your children or not, you would still be their parents. When that isn't the nature of the relationship, then the church doesn't permit it. And the reason is because baptism is the beginning of the spiritual life. It's not the end. And in baptism, you make promises. And you make these promises before God and the church. And the parents make them on behalf of the child. But if there's no way that you can realistically believe that those promises are going to be lived out, the nature of the sacraments, they're not like magic. So you can instead simply pray for the child and model what a true Christian life is. I've got my aunt and uncle did a lot of fostering, and they actually had one of their foster kids who, once he grew up, like tracked them down just to thank them for the witness that they showed him, because they were so loving and kind to him. That can be one of the ways that you exhibit Christ, even to a very small child. That might be the better long-term solution than getting them prematurely baptized when there's no one there to cultivate that and help form that into a mature faith.
Thank you. Great. Can I ask you another question?
Real quick,
please.
We're just got about a minute. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. So, oh gosh, you know what? I got nervous. I forgot it. Okay. Thank you.
That's all right. Last question. Always. Every time Cy tells people they have a minute, they either
mess people
forget
up.
their question,
I don't know.
or they start telling their life story. It's a fight or flight. I totally get it.
I apologize for that, Chris. Have you calmed down? Did it come to you now? Or has it?
Thank you. No, I forget. I forget what it was.
As soon as you hang up, you're going to remember it, Chris.
This looks like an excuse to get 2 books. But no, if you want to stick around and get a book, I'd be happy to. You know what? Actually, maybe a good book would just be Trent Horn's book.
How to remember things? Oh,
how
okay.
to remember things. Why We're Catholic. He gave the wrong.
Yeah,
Why
We're
Remember
Catholic.
Things is what I need. I gave the wrong book title.
Hang on, Chris. We're going to give you Why We're Catholic, the wonderful book from our colleague Trent Horn. We'd be happy to. If you'd like it, just stay on the line, give us an address, and we will send it off to you. Joe Heschmeyer is our guest. All of the lines have remained quite stubbornly full. Even I see one line disconnect, and there's a call just a second later. So if you're on the line, hang on the line. Don't go anywhere. We're going to come back. and get. We'll get you on. If you're on the line now, we'll get you on with Joe Heschmeyer. And if you haven't called yet, maybe there'll be 1 or 2 lines open during the break. That sometimes happens. You're welcome to call 888-318-7884. You don't have to be in Omaha. You can be anywhere. And it doesn't matter what your relationship with the Catholic Church, with the Bible, with Jesus, with the sacraments is. We don't care. We like talking about the Catholic faith. If you've got a question about any of those things, if you want to talk about the saints, you want to talk about the moral teachings of the church, whatever it is, you're welcome here. 888-318-7884. Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live, Joe Heschmeyer, our guest. It's Ask Me Anything with Joe Heschmeyer. If you haven't listened to Shameless Popery, that's Joe's podcast, you really do yourself a favor and check out some of, he's got, a large body of work there, and then new episodes each week coming out. You just go to shamelessjoe.com. You can look for Joe Heschmeyer or Shameless Popery on YouTube. And you can get it wherever you get your podcasts. You can sign up and listen anytime. They're available to anyone all around the world. Shameless Popery, because Joe is a shameless papist. But are you a papist right now? Like in the Interanum, are you still a papist?
I had a live stream earlier this week, and I just called it Shameless Sede Vacantism.
Did you really? Because the Sede, just in case people don't know what Sede means.
Sede is seat, meaning like the chair of Peter, which is a symbol of the papacy. Vacante is just vacant, so the seat is vacant. The chair is empty until a new pope. It is an interregnum is the other term you'll hear for it.
Yeah.
And so we pray for the successor of Pope Francis, and of course the successor of Peter. Actually, I'm glad that we didn't even plan this, but the College of Cardinals put out a statement encouraging people to pray, encouraging the faithful, saying this is the true force that in the Church promotes the unity of all the members of the one body of Christ, and face the enormity of the task ahead and the urgency of the present time. It is first of all necessary to make ourselves humble instruments of the infinite wisdom and providence of our Heavenly Father in docility to the action of the Holy Spirit. Indeed, He is the protagonist of the life of the people of God, the one to whom we must listen, accepting what He is saying to the Church. And then they say, may the Blessed Virgin Mary accompany these prayers with her maternal intercession.
Oh, beautiful.
So,
beautiful.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that we don't just want to sit idly back and predict or guess or
opine. We do want to do those things in addition. but
we totally want to do those things. Share spurious AI-generated images of various people as Pope.
I have seen so many people as Pope in recent days.
Yeah. I may have made a Jimmy Akin as Pope one myself.
Did you? I didn't see it.
This very afternoon. So I sent it to our in-house group chat just because I suggested this would unify East and West with his magnificent beard.
If Jimmy became Pope, which it could happen, he is a baptized, Catholic male. But then the aliens would come. They'd be like, that's one of ours. It's time to come down to Earth.
Perfect.
888-318-7884 is the number. 888-318-7884. I wonder if he would use the power of the papacy to get to the bottom of this Bigfoot thing and just settle it once and for all.
I'm not entirely sure that's quite how the power of the papacy works, but
it's an awesome power. Awesome power. The power of the papacy. All kinds of things. It's funny too to kind of look at those cardinals and go, gosh, one of those guys is about to be the Pope. I don't know which one it is, but one of those guys. They could pick someone outside the College of Cardinals.
Right.
But I don't think it's been done.
Many centuries since the last time that happened.
Yeah.
Either the 13th or 14th century, I believe, was the last time there was a non-cardinal.
Okay, so say just for the purpose of discussion, Joe.
14th century is 1378.
Let's say there's some abbot somewhere. Right, and they all go, Abbott, whatever. He should be the Pope. Do they have to call him from? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, how do they do this? They got to call him and go, "Do you want to be Pope?" Or
I actually know how this works. This
okay,
is
good.
Something
the
church has set up.
Yes,
they will send a delegate who is forbidden to speak to anyone else. Or anyone else he does, like if there's someone else he has to speak with, they also have to be kind of sworn to secrecy.
Okay.
Because he can't reveal like the mission that he's on, but he might have to do things like, book a flight. So that wouldn't count for it.
Right.
And then he goes and he brings them and then reveals the reason. So I think along the way, you just know you're being brought into a papal conclave. Then you can probably guess what that would entail.
Really? They just go, the cardinals would like to speak with you. Like they don't go, they want you to be Pope. They just say, Cardinal, could you come to the conclave with me?
Right. And it's fascinating.
I'd guess it. I would guess it. I'm very smart. I would guess it.
I mean, you probably already have guessed what they're going to ask you. So I'm not sure if smart is. It might just be a view of self. You're like, I'll fix it.
As much as they would want to, and I know they would. I mean, many of them would. I feel like a married man is very unlikely to get the call to be the Pope.
I think so too.
So they have.
It'd be a real burden.
So here's the Cardinals, right? If they decide they want someone outside the conclave, they like open the front door and they go, send somebody in here, and somebody comes in and goes, get on a plane and go to wherever this abbot is, and then they go to the abbot, and that come with me. They'd like to see you in the conclave. I can't tell you what it's about. At this point, you know you would wink. You couldn't stop yourself. You'd be like, I can't tell you what it's about. And then
imagine your disappointment if it turned out they were just like, we can't get the Wi-Fi working.
Yeah, right. Like, do you have the password? Someone said Pope Francis gave it to you.
Just to be clear, there's no Wi-Fi in the conclave, but you get the idea.
Yeah, but yeah, okay. But then the guy, so he doesn't want to be Pope. He goes all the way to Rome, and he goes, "No, I'm not your man. You're gonna have to ask somebody else."
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I mean, that is as strange as that is about the most realistic way that you would trigger the provision in paragraph 87 of Universi Dominici Gregis. So it talks about how, like, the last step of getting a new pope is, do you accept your canonical election as Supreme Pontiff? And the guy can say no, in which case you just go back to the drawing board and keep voting.
Right. Well, Pope Francis said he considered saying no. He actually he said, "Give me a minute," and he went off by himself and prayed. He said, which I think actually that's kind of prudent. Like, that's not something you want to just go, "Oh, of course, sure, no problem." Can I have weekends off?
Actually, I already had plans next week.
Yeah, right. This is fascinating to me, Joe, that there is a provision for this. So that's interesting. I can't think of anybody who it could be. Like, there's not some.
No, I think you probably got it right in the sense that sometimes there will be like a particularly holy, like, abbot or, someone involved in a religious order. But when I say sometimes, I think Celestine V is the last time that happened. And he
didn't really
lasted. He lasted 5 months. So it turns out when you ask a hermit to lead the church, they might be like, this is a lot of people. This is not what I had originally set out to serve God.
Well, they had the right idea. They wanted a holy man, but he was holy in part because he had devoted himself to a life of solitary prayer. And then you get to Rome, and there's a lot of rich foods here. This is not matching.
And just the busyness of it. It's just not the lifestyle one has kind of set their heart on in their entire life around, in terms of the whole plan of life, having silence and prayer and structure and all of that. A lot of the sheer number of visitors you're entertaining and number of people you're interacting with and everything else, it had to have been just overwhelming. And, I mean, I don't mean that you can't be a very holy pope. It's just a very different call to holiness.
Oh, sure, yeah. You can be a holy king.
Francis de Sales talks about this in terms of just the difference between, like, someone called to a life of, silent contemplation and a bishop and a parent and everything else. These are different calls, all ordered to sainthood, but different kinds of saints. So the other kind of the twist with Celestine V is he was elected pope after the longest period of time in which there had been like a papal interregnum.
Yeah.
It was like 2 years long. And so then they were like, okay, finally. And then 5 months later, he's like, actually, I resign. I have to imagine that was a little dispiriting.
They weren't very nice to popes who resigned in those days either. It wasn't like Pope Benedict resigning.
That's true.
Where they treated him well.
Right, because he was a potential kind of threat to the Pope. So I think he was very, like Boniface VIII, who succeeded him, was very worried about him.
Yeah. All right. Let's just take a break then. I didn't even know we were going to talk about that, but I'm fascinated by that thought.
Yeah.
It could
well,
be
hopefully, people are also. Otherwise, they're going to be like, why did you
guys
talk about Celestine V for that long?
But that is the most interesting conversation about the papacy that I've heard on any media. Everybody's talking about the same things. Who's it going to be? We talk about what if it's a monk?
Yeah. What if it's a random abbot? What would happen?
Yeah. What would happen then? That's why you got to keep listening. We'll be right back with more of it. Catholic Answers Live.
Stay with us for more Catholic Answers Live.
Are you looking to study Catholic theology in a formal way with the guidance of faithful scholars? Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by the Augustine Institute, offering master's degrees in theology, pastoral theology, and Catholic education with flexible study options on campus, online, or both. The Augustine Institute equips students to serve Christ and His Church in schools, parishes, dioceses, apostolates, and the home. Learn more today at augustine.edu.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Magnificat. Published monthly, Magnificat features texts of daily Mass, prayers, articles, meditations, art commentaries, and more, in step with the liturgical rhythm of the Church, on the web at magnificat.com.
Hey, this is Michael O'Neill, the Miracle Hunter. I'll be delving into the fascinating world of miracles and taking you on a hunt that explores the greatest mysteries and marvels of the Catholic Church. I'll be examining what constitutes a miracle, how miracles are investigated and approved, and the role they play in the lives of the faithful. We'll look at the miracles of the Gospels and early Christianity, considering the claims of the miraculous in our own modern age.
The Miracle Hunter, Saturday at 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. Joe Heschmeyer is our guest. I am Cy Kellett, your host, and you are welcome to call with whatever question you got, and I'm going to go to the phones just because I neglected to do it for the whole first segment because I got carried away with an exciting conversation with Joe. Salvatore is in Las Vegas, Nevada, listening on our website, Catholic.com. Salvatore, welcome.
Thank you. So my question is regards of canon, because I'm aware of the whole arguments with Protestantism, but I've yet to heard one about Orthodoxy, and I'm aware that they include Maccabees 3, 4, and some Orthodox even include other scriptures like the Book of Enoch or the Gospel of Thomas. So is that a good argument against Orthodoxy, that they don't have some defined canon of Scripture? And how would they typically argue against that?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think it is a good argument if you do the right caveats and kind of frame it in the right way. So here's what I would say to that. So, because I could imagine someone replying, well, the early Christians didn't have a set biblical canon, and so therefore, how can you insist this is necessary? And, if the lack of a biblical canon didn't invalidate the early church, then it doesn't invalidate Orthodoxy. That would be what I would anticipate as a rebuttal. But I think you can say this, that it isn't just that there isn't an agreed upon Bible in Eastern Orthodoxy, is that there doesn't appear to be a mechanism to produce an agreed upon Bible. Like, it's okay if a particular question hasn't been resolved yet, but it's a very different thing to say it's unresolvable and that you don't even know by what mechanism a resolution could happen. And then I would want to put the problem of, well, you don't have an agreed upon Bible in relation to several other problems, like the general failure to have any Orthodox-wide dogmatic definitions of anything after the split from Rome. That it appears that in the first millennium, the Church, East and West, was quite happy to define doctrine, quite happy to get into even the theological weeds of the three persons in one essence in God, or the two natures of Christ, et cetera, et cetera. And then after 1054, the East appears to be incapable of doing that anymore, incapable of resolving that. And sometimes we'll try to spin that as a positive and say, oh, these Western Christians are all obsessed with defining everything instead of leaving it as a mystery. And it's like, no, you guys defined things too when you were in full union with the Church, because dogmatic definitions are really important. So I would then tie it to a point that Bishop Callistus Ware, God rest his soul, made, which is that the Orthodox don't have an agreement on how many ecumenical councils there are or what it is to be an ecumenical council. And he points out that many say 7, but others will say 8 or 9, that there are at least 3 other councils that are held by some Orthodox and not others. And so that's a real problem. Like, we can say as a matter of history that the reason that the so-called Robber Council, Second Ephesus, wasn't accepted in East or West is because the Pope rejected it. And rightly so, because it was heretical. But if you don't have the Pope to say which are and aren't the valid councils, then I don't know how you get to which councils can settle things, and therefore I don't know how you would get to even how you could potentially come up with an agreed-upon biblical list. So that would be kind of how I would frame it. In other words, to make sure it's not just you don't have one yet, therefore you're missing something, but you don't have one and don't appear to have a way of getting one.
Does that?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Salvatore.
Yeah.
You know what? If you want to stick around, Michael Lofton's book, Answering Orthodoxy, is that the name of it?
Yeah, Answering Orthodoxy. We'd be happy to send it to him. Would you like Salvatore? If you don't have to say on the air if you would like it, we'll send it to you if you give us an address. Just hang on. Answering Orthodoxy, Michael Lofton, and it's just answers a whole bunch of questions related to the Catholic Orthodox debates and questions and relationship and all that. So hang on, we'd love to send it to you. It's a very good book. People, you should. Anyone can get it at shop.catholic.com. It's on sale right now. Answering Orthodoxy. All right, let's go to Joel in Mansfield, Ohio, listening on Annunciation Radio. Glad to have you here, Joel. Go ahead with your question.
Hello. I converted a few years ago, and my brother did not convert, so every once in a while he sends me a zinger. And just Tuesday, he said to me that the Catholic Church had a female pope named Pope Joan. And he said that there was a board game about it. So I looked it up online. I'd never heard of that. And I just wondered if that was true or just an urban myth.
It is absolutely an urban myth. And I don't think any historian thinks otherwise because, well, for a number of reasons. One, the different people claiming there was a Pope Joan can't agree what century she existed in or any of the kind of basic details. It's clearly a salacious kind of story that the medievals came up with and came up with hundreds of years after the alleged event happened. But we can say with a pretty good deal of precision, like who each pope was. So there's no big gaps where you could have had a Pope Joan in there. And it would be quite remarkable, given the centrality of the papacy during this period, that no one would notice, oh yeah, remember that time we accidentally elected a woman as pope? So it's a total myth. I will confess that it was a myth I believed when I was in college, and was quite embarrassed when I asked a Catholic about it, and he explained like, "Oh yeah, that's definitely not a real thing." So, in honor of Pope Urban, I think Cy wants to call it an urban legend.
I would be delighted to call it an urban legend. Thank you very much for including me in your tomfoolery. But your brother likes to call you with zingers because when you say zinger, these are things that are supposed to discredit Catholic claims. Is that the idea?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Well, we collect them up. We'll make a book responding to Joel's brother's zingers. I think that we'd sell 1 million copies of it.
I think we'll just call it the Big Book of Catholic Answers. I think we already have that book.
Oh, Joel.
I do want to give a shout out for Joe's book, The Early Church was a Catholic Church. I have that. I got that not too long ago, and I read it cover to cover. It has a lot of good research in it.
Very good.
I'm grateful to hear that. I want to say, if you keep doing this where you're reading actual books with footnotes and history and citations and your brother's just parroting medieval internet rumors, he's kind of bringing a knife to a gunfight. You should point that out to him. He's got to up his game and read books.
There was no medieval internet. That is...
as I said, medieval internet rumor, I really liked the phrase, so I didn't correct it. I was like, oh yeah, I like the idea that we're on the medieval internet.
Joel, hang out. We want to supersize your abilities to contest with your brother's zingers. And so we are going to send you a copy of the Big Book of Catholic Answers if you would like it. All you have to do is stay right there. And Edgar, whenever he feels like it, that's how we do it. Edgar just picks up the line whenever he feels like it, and then he will get an address from you, and we will send the book out to you. Off we go to Texas. Christian is in Texas watching on YouTube. Welcome, Christian. You got a question for Joe?
Hi. Yes, I'm a big fan of the show. Yesterday, a Protestant YouTuber and apologist, Redeemed Zoomer, uploaded a video and addressed certain things about the Catholic Church, including alleged contradictions in the ecumenical councils. How can I, as a Catholic, defend the councils? And I guess that's my question.
Okay, so I actually started to watch that video last night, and then I don't even remember. I got distracted. So I didn't actually get to the part where he laid that out. So could you fill me in? What were the alleged contradictions?
Well, he wasn't really directly quoting the councils. He did reference the Council of Florence, and the main thing that he brought up was the Catholic Church anathematizing certain sects and then supposedly renouncing those anathemas pertaining to Vatican II and everything.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It wasn't directly quotations. Sorry.
So, the basic argument here is the Council of Florence talks about the necessity of being Catholic for salvation. And this is, by the way, long-standing Christian teaching. I was just reading earlier today, St. Jerome talking about union with the Church of Rome being akin to being on Noah's Ark, outside of which you're not going to live. And this is in the 300s, 376, I believe. So this isn't some medieval invention. Clearly, when the Council of Florence is talking about this, it is reiterating long-standing Christian teaching. And that is unpopular for obvious reasons for Protestants who are not in full communion with the Church of Rome. But it's worth just telling the truth about this. It is not enough to just have Jesus as your personal Lord and Savior, because Christ comes to build a church. And we can't accept the head and reject the body without putting ourselves in spiritual danger. Now,
Amen.
We need to also put a very heavy caveat on everything I just said, and the Second Vatican Council does that, which is when we're talking about these things, and we talk about if you do X, you'll go to hell, we mean someone who does X knowingly and willingly. So, to take an example that might be upsetting to some people, sex outside of marriage is mortally sinful. But someone who's a victim of rape is not guilty of that. Someone who thinks they're in a marriage, but unbeknownst to them, their marriage is actually not, maybe their spouse was actually previously married, they didn't realize it, etc. They're not guilty of any sin. That doesn't mean sex outside of marriage isn't wrong, but it means that when we talk about fornication, adultery, etc., we mean someone who is knowingly and intentionally doing those things. Well, likewise with schism, there's a difference between someone knowingly breaking off communion in the church and someone who was raised for, generations. Their family has been outside of full communion with the church, and so they've been part of the only ecclesial body they've ever known. So those are two very different cases, two very different situations. And so the world of the Council of Florence looks very different than the world of the Second Vatican Council. And so the two councils address the world and the situation of Christians and those in estranged relationships in different ways, because the situation has changed, not because the truth has changed. Does that make sense? Because this is a common, that's a common error people fall into. So like the medieval world, the assumption was you knew the Catholic claim and accepted it or rejected it. And we no longer make that assumption. I mean, you got people out there thinking Pope Joan was a real person.
Ooh, that was a callback to the call right before you there, Christian.
His brother, not him. He was being humble enough to double check.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Joel, I feel your pain. My brother comes with me with zingers all the time. So
we need to do a book of brother zingers.
Caller interaction.
Yeah, we should do that. Like call and with your brother or sister who gives you zingers against the Catholic Church, and that would be a fun show. Darren, did you write that down? He totally pretended to write it down. He doesn't even have anything to write it down with. All right, Christian, thanks. Let's go to Ella in Florida watching on YouTube. Ella, go ahead with your question. No, Ella?
That's December.
No, the first Noella. That was our first Noella today. There, I joined in. with your tomfoolery on that one.
Yeah.
All right, I'll come back to you, Ella. If you're there, it might be
ironically
on mute
making
or
it not the first Noella, but yeah.
Oh, My Noella was the second Noella. Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I apologize that there is no song, the second Noella. All right. Well, that doesn't leave me with enough time to go back to the phones. Is anybody checking on Ella on line 6? I think she's probably there, and maybe there's maybe the mute button got pushed or something. But I could also be projecting that because about 30% of my calls involve me going, "Can you hear me?" and then realizing that I pushed the mute button. I would say at least 30% of my calls involve that. And there have been numerous meetings here at Catholic Answers where I thought I was participating and no one was listening to me, and then realized I'm not actually participating in the meeting because there's a little line through my microphone graphic.
I'm really grateful that's the reason why no one was listening to you.
Otherwise, Joe, I am a respected figure around here that people listen to.
Yes, exactly. I would have been horrified if we were just ignoring your sage advice.
Uh-huh. Right back with more Catholic Answers Live. Have you ever wondered about the mysterious, even obscure aspects of the Catholic faith? Dive into the Jimmy Akin podcast, where Jimmy brings together information from many fields as he pushes the boundaries of apologetics. Tune in today to the Jimmy Akin podcast, Mysteries of the Faith, a highly entertaining, informative, and at times humorous show that will help you grow in your faith. Visit JimmyAkinPodcast.com today to subscribe.
Lots of people have big questions about Catholicism. It needs a big book of answers, and now it's got one. The Big Book of Catholic Answers is filled with helpful replies to more than 250 questions about the faith. Questions about God, salvation history, the Creed, the Bible, the list goes on and on. Order your copy of the Big Book of Catholic Answers today at shop.catholic.com or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
What was the church like in its infancy? In a word, Catholic. And Joe Heschmeyer has the receipts. In his best-selling book, The Early Church Was the Catholic Church, he gives you the details from the historical records of the first 2 centuries of Christianity. Right now, get a copy for just $10, plus free shipping if you live in the continental United States. Get more information and order The Early Church Was the Catholic Church at theearlychurchwascatholic.com.
If you're not a Bible scholar, the full message of how the Sunday Mass readings fit together can be tough to comprehend. Apologist Carlo Broussard is here to help. Join Carlo every Friday for the Sunday Catholic Word podcast. In each episode, he unpacks the scripture readings for that Sunday and brings them all together so you can better understand and defend the faith. Visit SundayCatholicWord.com to subscribe. That's SundayCatholicWord.com.
On Thursdays, Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, our topic will be, whom or what are you praying for? And now back to Catholic Answers Live with Cy Kellett.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Joe Heschmeyer is our guest this hour. Shameless Popery. Check out Shameless Popery. You going out to speak anywhere, Joe? You got any public speaking you want to mention?
This weekend there's a special gathering of people who contribute to Catholic Answers in glorious downtown Kansas City. It'll be a nice 20-minute drive. I'm very much looking forward to spending time with everybody.
That's right. You're going to a major conference and it's 20 minutes from your house.
It's great. You can't beat that.
That's really nice.
Get to eat nice food and then go home and sleep in my own bed at the end of the day. So.
Wow. Your bed and nice food are 2 of your favorate things, too. You talk about them all the time.
And I love the people of Catholic Answers, so it's going to be like the trifecta.
All right. Let's go back to Florida. Adrian is in Florida watching on YouTube. Adrian, sorry to keep you waiting. Go ahead with your question for Joe.
Hello.
Hi.
My question was, in what way does Christ fulfill Isaiah chapter 2, verse 4, the world peace prophecy? Because often I hear Jews, that's one of their main objections, is that Christ did not restore world peace or create world peace.
Okay, yeah. So the beating of swords into plowshares and all of this is obviously metaphorical language. Hopefully that is clear. Obviously have a bigger problem of like how many people are using plowshares today, or for that matter, swords. So, obviously there is some metaphorical language being used, but it is talking about the creation of peace. And I think we can miss this in a couple of ways. Number one, we don't realize how barbaric the world was before Christianity. I was reading recently Bart Ehrman in his upcoming book talks about like just the rise of mercy and all of this. When you compare pre and post Christian society, there is this radical sea change. And so as a result, like they're really, I haven't read the upcoming book, obviously. I don't think it's out yet. But there's something radical about the Christian message that really does transform the world. And because we're on the other end of it, and because we're in a world that in many ways has grown cold to the gospel and is now moving in this very dark anti-Christian direction, we miss how violent the world was before Christianity and how violent the world is in those areas that have rejected Christianity. I would say look at the death toll in places run by atheistic regimes, and you'll see the difference Christianity makes. That'd be like the first thing. Second, the ultimate meaning of these passages about Christ coming to bring peace. Now, he's clear that he does in one way. Peace I give you, my peace I leave with you. But then he also says, I come not to bring peace but the sword. How are both these things true? Well, you have to understand what it means to have peace. Peace is not simply the absence of conflict. Peace is right ordering. And so you can have, a society of extreme oppression, but because the people are afraid to rise up, there's no violence. But they're not really at peace. Their institutionalized oppression isn't the same as peace. Peace is in right ordering, right relationships. And so what Christ comes to bring us is a radical kind of peace that the world cannot bring, because it's rightly ordered relationship with God and my neighbor in a way that was impossible before. And so, once again, we can easily take these things for granted. But just to give, maybe one fact I like to think about from time to time. St. Thomas Aquinas is from Italy. He studies at the University of Paris in France. And his teacher is St. Albert the Great from Germany. These were countries that, but for Christianity, would have been in much more violent conflict with one another than they even were. But as a result of a common faith, they're able to come together and produce works of intellectual brilliance and theological ingenuity in a way that would have been unthinkable in say, the pagan world. Do you see what I mean? So there is something radical that across national and even imperial lines, you have people drawn together by a shared citizenship in the kingdom of God in a way that creates a new type of peace that would have been unthinkable in the past.
Okay, that's an excellent answer. Yes, that helps me.
Very good.
Good.
Adrian.
I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the call. Just a little north of Florida, we go to Georgia. Chris is in Georgia, listening on the Catholic Answers Live app. Chris, thanks for downloading our app onto your phone. Go ahead with your question.
Yeah, hi. First off, I'd just like to say that, I was sorry to hear about your mother.
Thank you, Chris.
I want you to know that I'm praying for you and your family, and I encourage other listeners to do as well.
That's very kind of you, Chris. Thank you for saying that.
I'm very glad you said that. I told myself I was going to say that before and then completely forgot to invite people to pray for Joanne.
Thank you very much. Thank you both. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Great. Yeah. Also, too, shout out Joe Heschmeyer, Shameless Potpourri, Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Thank you.
Is there some way we can hire you, Chris? Are you available, or?
No, I see you guys just got a new hire, Emily Torres, though.
Yeah.
You are up.
Stay
on
up on
things.
your
Yeah. I think she joins us in July, right? We'll get Emily here in July. Yeah. All right, Chris, go ahead with the question.
Yeah, I'll get to it. So my question was, after the resurrection, what was the fallout in sort of the Jewish community? I guess more specifically among the Sadducees. They just had this man crucified, and it seems like that's not something that they would have just let go. And they certainly were probably too ignorant to, or I guess not ignorant. What's another word for stubborn? I don't know, but to.
I think stubborn is a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it just seems like I don't know that much about it, and I haven't really heard that much about it. I don't know if there's any writings about it, but it just seems like, Jesus was walking the earth for 40-ish days after the resurrection. It's like they had plenty of time to respond if they were going to do something. So, what did people like Caiaphas and other Jews, non-believing Jews, think at the time?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, one thing that we should say is, first of all, there appear to have been a number of conversions to Christianity. So I think one response people had to the resurrection was they became Christian in droves. Another response was to reject it, of course, to think that the apostles were making this up, to think that the apostles stole Jesus's body. And as you say, in the case of the Sadducees, they have some philosophical objections to the resurrection as well. So in Acts 23, there's this great scene where St. Paul is speaking before the Sanhedrin, and he talks about the gospel, but he presents it by introducing himself as a Pharisee and a son of Pharisees, and that he is being persecuted with respect to the hope and the resurrection of the dead, which is great because the Pharisees are going to love everything they just heard, and the Sadducees are going to hate everything they just heard. And so you get a clear sense that there is this question. As you say, the Pharisees don't believe Jesus rose from the dead. The Sadducees don't believe anybody can rise from the dead, ever, that there won't even be a resurrection at the last day. And so they're objecting to the resurrection in very different senses. And you see Paul very deftly sort of presenting the two sides this problem within themselves. And they end up having such a fight that the soldiers actually have to come in and break it up. So it's a fascinating kind of scene that shows us a little insight into especially a group like the Sadducees, who we hear so little about, because as you may well know, a fairly short time after all of this happens, you have the destruction of the temple in 70, and then you have the beginning of the diaspora, then you have the Bar Kokhba revolt in 132, and you just have this mass persecution, basically the extermination, extinction of the Sadducees, and a lot of the Jewish world of Jesus's day is gone within 100 years, and gone permanently. The priesthood, the Sadducees, all of this stuff is just kind of wiped out. And so as a result, we only have these little glimpses as to kind of how they understood the resurrection, how they understood what had happened, because their world was being upturned first by the rise of Christianity, but then by these other events as well.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that answer.
All right. Well, Chris, thank you very much. Thanks for the call and for the very kind words. The number here is 888-318-7884. Joe Heschmeyer is our guest. Ask Me Anything is our topic, and that means you can ask anything. We'll get more questions for Joe right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
You're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Hi, this is Father Mike Schmitz. Please join me for Ascension's Bible in a Year and Catechism in a Year here on EWTN Radio. We're going through the entire Bible and the Catechism in 365 days. If you've ever wanted to understand what it means to be Catholic and allow those truths to shape your life, this is for you.
Bible in a Year and Catechism in a Year with Father Mike Schmitz, tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific on EWTN Radio.
Who was the first Catholic in your family? Were they evangelized by a friend, a coworker, a stranger? Did you ever think that you could be that person that God uses to save a soul? And that soul could save their family, their grandchildren, and generations to come. At St. Paul Street Evangelization, a Catholic nonprofit, we train, equip, and mobilize Catholic disciples to do the urgent work of evangelization. Catholic Answers is supported in part by St. Paul Street Evangelization, streetevangelization.com.
Joe Heschmeyer, our guest this hour on Catholic Answers Live. Check out his podcast, Shameless Popery. Go to shamelessjoe.com. Go wherever you get your podcasts, or check out his YouTube channel, Shameless Popery. or check out shamelessjoe.com. All right, we're going to go now to Bob in Oxnard, California, listening on the Catholic Answers Live app. Welcome, Bob. Go ahead with your question for Joe.
Has anyone compiled a list of important or revealing early Christian writings that were not available until after the Reformation?
I don't know of one that is specific for only after the Reformation. So a little bit of historical background here. The Christians in the Middle Ages were too credulous, too willing to believe that anything that purported to be an ancient document was. And so they regularly fell for forgeries. And sometimes you'll have people who treat this like it was intentional and malicious. I don't think it was. I think they just were caught off guard by unscrupulous forgers. And so during the Renaissance, as people take a more critical eye towards everything, they rightly point out that many of these documents that had been assumed to be real were forgeries. And this includes, for instance, some letters that were ascribed to St. Ignatius of Antioch. They're early documents, but they're not actually by St. Ignatius. And they're not actually from, 107. And so at the time of the Reformation, one of the things going on is that even when documents exist, you have Protestants particularly who are very skeptical of any of the documents. And so on the Catholic side, there's maybe an overwillingness to believe that these early Christian writings are actually real, and some of them aren't. They're forgeries. On the Protestant side, there's a pretty radical skepticism about the early church. And so, famously, John Calvin and many Calvinists for centuries after deny that any of the letters of St. Ignatius of Antioch are real. And it's really not till you get Protestants like Lightfoot, and Zan, who I think is Lutheran, in the 19th century, who really clear up a lot of the issue. And for that matter, on the Catholic side, John Henry Newman does a good job of helping to distinguish the real from the fake Ignatian epistles. They've come under renewed attack even since then. I had a debate with James White last month in which he called into question the reliability of the letters that are almost universally accepted as Ignatian, and claimed that the scholarly consensus was turning against that. That's not really true. If you want good work just on Ignatius, Stephen Boyce, who is Anglican, has on his Facts podcast has an episode called "Will the Real Ignatius Please Stand Up?" evaluating the recensions with Ignatian scholar Jack Bull. That's going to get super into the weeds as to even like which forms of the letters and all that we know to be accurate. But if you really want to do a deep dive, I know I'm only answering on 7 of the letters right now. But I say this to say a lot of the problem isn't that we didn't have letters, although there are obviously ancient documents that we didn't have in Latin or didn't have maybe at all. For instance, the Muratorian fragment is a good example of one that was a later find and has like one of the earliest biblical canons. So you have those kinds of things, but a lot of the questions were about authenticity and dating, and a lot of those questions were ones that it just took a long time to kind of sort out. So even if we had the document before, we now know we can trust it or know that we can't trust it in a way we didn't at the time. A good book for just how this fits together in terms of these writings from the early Christians and what we believe as Catholics would be Jimmy Akin's book, The Fathers Know Best. And so if you want to stick around on the line, I'd be happy to make sure we can get a copy of that to you.
We most certainly can. Just hang on, Bob. We'll send it to you. Just, if you give us an address, we'll send it to you. I'm going to move just a little bit quick now because I want to get as many on as I can before we have to go. Derek is in Indiana. Derek, thank you for the call. Go ahead with your question.
Yes, sir. I was wondering why Jesus never told the Pharisees or the Sadducees that he was born in Bethlehem, or that anyone that knew them that understood the problem could say that he was born in Bethlehem too. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I think the answer is probably that it isn't central to the claims that he's making. Now, it is true. There are important messianic prophecies that point to Bethlehem. But this doesn't appear to be the reason people are rejecting him. So I think as a result of that, he doesn't focus his energy on saying, no, I really am born in Bethlehem. I was just raised in Nazareth. It's not the reason that they're walking away or the reason they're saying no to him. That's my suspicion, because that appears to be just based on the mentions of it. We find people alluding to him being from Nazareth. We even find one of the apostles saying, can anything good come from Nazareth? But they're not making this, a philosophical objection that, hey, the Messianic prophecy says Bethlehem, and so we should be looking for someone born there. It just doesn't seem like that objection is what people are raising against him.
Okay.
Okay.
Right, thank you very much.
All right.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you very much. On we go. Let's go to, where am I going? Igor in Florida. Igor, are you there with us?
Yes.
All right.
Hi, Sai.
Hi, welcome.
My sympathies for the passing of your mother.
Thank you.
Certainly my prayers.
Thank you.
Beautiful words you shared in the opening of the broadcast.
Well,
Really
thanks.
Inspiring witness of our Catholic faith.
She was a really good mom.
I'm sure she was. Glad to hear that. Hi, Joe. Big fan. Watch your latest episode of the Shameless Popery podcast and about Muslims and Christians worshiping the same God. I agree with the premise that disagreeing about God doesn't necessarily mean we're talking about a different God. But if that is true, what should then be our parameters? Meaning, what would one have to believe about their God to make it a different God? Like for example, do they worship the same God as well? They think it's the one true God, right?
Oh, sorry, I missed that sentence. Which group were you asking about, or which?
The followers of Sikhism, for example, they claim to worship the one true God, the creator of the universe. So do they also worship the God that we do?
Okay, so yeah, let's unpack that. So we want to unpack it in two ways. Number one, and I would point to Romans 1, as I think you know, for this, that St. Paul can speak about the wicked pagans who he says know God, but refuse to honor him. So that's pretty significant, because he doesn't say they don't know God because they don't have the Bible. They don't have, the Old Testament. He doesn't say that at all. He claims that they do know him. And he says in Romans 1:19 that what can be known about God is plain to them because God has shown it to them. Ever since the creation of the world, his invisible nature, namely his eternal power and deity, has been clearly perceived in the things that have been made. So, someone who looks at the world, realizes that the world had to be created, realizes that whoever created it is eternally powerful, and realizes that whoever created it isn't a visible part of the world, they're talking about God. Now, they might then come up with a whole set of myths about what this God is like, and they might be man-made and false. They might even be demonic distortions to draw people away from true knowledge of God. But nevertheless, there is some core knowledge about the existence of God that's going on there. So, as St. Paul even says, although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking and their senseless minds were darkened. So you can be drawn away from what you already know or should know about God through falsehood and through sin. But we want to recognize that these are still claims being made about the one God. So I would say two things. Number one, the person who reasoning from reason alone comes to the fact that a God created the world is talking about the God of Abraham. They don't know, they've never heard of Abraham, they don't know anything about the Bible, etc. They may have a lot of wrong ideas about God, but they're still talking about the one God because he's not just like a philosophical concept, he's real, he exists. Second, even like an atheist who denies God is talking about God. They're saying false things, evil things about God, but they're still talking about God. So if those two things are true, and I think those are almost unavoidably true, then it follows that a lot of what's going on in the world's religions may be people talking about God in a confused and ignorant way. And that lines up with the way the Bible talks about it. And for instance, in Acts 17, when St. Paul speaks to them in Athens, and he talks about them worshiping a God they don't know, and then calling them to full faith in Jesus Christ. Now, having said that, it's also possible for people to worship things that aren't God like lesser spiritual entities, namely demons. And so St. Paul also talks about pagans doing that. So both of those things can be true. Some pagan worship is directed towards the true God. It's just distorted. We're not saying it's good, it's fine, whatever. We're just saying the one intended to be honored is God. Others are serving beings that they should know are clearly not the creator of the world, clearly not the creator of everything. So in terms of where that line is, there's a few things that we would look at. Number one, what kind of claims are you making? And this is what's called the referent. So I give this example in the episode, but if you look up in the sky and one person says it's a bird, one person says it's a plane, they're talking about the same thing. They disagree on all the properties. A bird and a plane aren't that much alike. But it's clear they're both directionally looking at the same object of reference, and so they're talking about the same thing. So if someone is talking about the creator of the world, they're talking about God. Even if they get every other thing wrong, they're still talking about God. Whereas someone who's talking about like tree spirits and idols and things like that, they're not talking about the creator of the world, and therefore they're not talking about God, whatever else they may say. So we can draw a principal distinction there at the level of reference. I don't know, does that was I had to do a lot more kind of background with that because I assume not everybody listening
No, I think it made a lot
watched
of
the
sense.
show, but
I think it made a lot of sense. Appreciate the answer. Thank you.
All right.
Oh, good.
Thank you very much. Our next question seems to follow on, so I'm going to go on to it. Christopher in Arizona watching on YouTube. If you could be quick, Christopher, with your question, we'll be able to get you an answer. No? Oh, hang on, Christopher. That was me. I pushed the wrong button. Go ahead, Christopher.
That's okay.
Sorry.
He literally warned ahead of time he might do that.
I know. So yeah, obviously it does relate to the previous question as well as the previous video. I suppose the first half of it, I will try to keep this brief. First half of it, I was actually questioning how much information was the church able to acquire before making a particular definition or explanation in regards to Islam, making a sort of official statement.
It depends which period we're talking about. I'm going to answer that just in case we run out of time. You have obviously wildly different levels of exposure to Islam. So St. John of Damascus, for instance, he's writing in Damascus after Muslims have conquered it. And his father and his grandfather were Christians who worked in the government while it was run by the caliphate. And so he was deeply acquainted with Islam and seems to have spoken Arabic as well as Greek. Then you get like Western medieval Christians who, at a certain age, are so cut off that there's a lot of falsehoods being spread about, there's like these three gods in Islam. And you'll occasionally see Christian writers in the West, not really the saints, interestingly, who have like very obviously confused understandings about Muslims and about Islam. But when you talk about the church as such, the church documents on Islam, whether we're talking about like in the 11th century or more recently like Vatican II, they seem to have a pretty decent understanding of at least the core. This is a take on the Christian story, but making radically different claims about God that I think is well informed.
Okay.
And, the issue too, that was kind of fun with the analogy that you had also mentioned as well, because while I could see, and I suppose too it's because of more information that has come out on the internet, especially within the past several years, it seems, from especially my perspective, I'm not trying to go against church teaching or anything, but from what I have noticed, it seems like online it makes more sense for Christians and Jews to basically argue whether or not Clark Kent is Superman, but it seems like Muslims are basically saying it's Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of why, apologies.
Unfortunately, I don't have time to reply to that, but you can have evil things ascribed to God. I would argue even some Christian authors do this, but that doesn't mean that they're not talking about God. It means they're saying wicked things about God.
I wonder if you were thinking about John Calvin.
I was, but I didn't want to like throw a bomb against Calvinists and then just like roll on.
That's kind of unfair. I apologize for that.
I think any non-Calvinist would probably recognize, he says some things that sound wicked about God. That doesn't mean he's not talking about God. It means he's speaking ill of him.
Christopher, thanks so much. That brings us to the end. Joe Heschmeyer, thanks for 2 fantastic hours.
My pleasure.
All right, let me know if you get a visitor from the conclave. If anybody shows up at your house, I'd like to know.
I will make a
Shoot me
YouTube
a
video
text.
about it only after the fact.
All
I've
right.
been sworn to secrecy.
See you next time, God willing, right here on Catholic Answers Live.